start out by asking a few questions of the audience just to get an idea of who I'm talking to. So how many of you actually work for a company that makes a product or a component that goes into a product? How many of you are working for technology solution providers of some kind of software? About half and half. How many of you do collaborative R&D outside of your own organization? Yeah, so collaborative R&D to me is such a great opportunity. And the institute that Tom just talked about, one of the 14 institutes that the US government has set up across the country. How many of you have heard of Manufacturing USA before Tom's talk today? Every time I ask that question, there's very few people that have heard of it. So it's like a well-kept secret. There's over $1 billion of federal money going into these 14 institutes over a 5-year period for each one, and then they have to be self-sustaining. And every company can join one of these institutes, depending on what area you're focused on, that you want to do collaborative research and work with some of the large corporations and a lot of the smalls. I think the price for a tier 3 industry member at DMDI, is it still $500?
500 or 25,000,
depending on the size. Yeah. So it's a great opportunity, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the University of Hampshire is doing. So I got into this collaborative R&D world when I retired from aerospace and defense after 35 years. I was the founding executive director of DMDII, so Tom was a good friend of mine. And then recently, I was hired by the University of Hampshire to set up a new advanced manufacturing center there where we hope to do some collaborative R&D. This is a picture of Mr. Olson. He's a gentleman that worked for a family-owned business up in New Hampshire called Whelan Engineering, and he worked there for 60 years. Retired at age 81. He was the president for the last 40 years of his career, and he grew this family-owned business to a substantial-sized company. So the family, over 4 generations, wanted to honor Mr. Olson, and they donated $5 million to the University of Hampshire, directed standing up a new advanced manufacturing center. So they hired me to come up and do that. So our goal is to try to make an impact with open source. No offense to all the technology solution providers out there. There's so many different choices for companies to choose from. What we want to do is help some of the really small companies. The companies that really don't know how to begin their Industry 4.0 journey. They don't know what software to buy. Frankly, a lot of them don't even know what Industry 4.0 is all about. So smart manufacturing, digital manufacturing, pick your buzzword, but we want to try to help some of the small mediums. And of course, we're in New Hampshire, so probably within a 150-mile radius is what we're targeting. But we want to leverage existing machine tool automation support features. What do I mean by that? So we've intentionally chosen 3 different machines that we're buying. One is a DMG Mori 5-axis, one's a Mazak vertical turning center, and one is a Haas 3-axis. And each one of the machines that we've selected off the shelf have the ability to feed the parts into the back of the machine through an opening with a robot, or you can walk up to the front of the machine and open it up and work on it yourself. So either one, and we're setting up a system to be able to demonstrate to these small mediums, look, you don't have to make these huge investments for one huge job that you're going to run for the next couple of years. You can buy machines and set up automation that you can have a lot of flexibility. You can use these machines for one-off pieces, for small runs, but you can also set them up for the robotics. So that's one of the things we're trying to show. We're also intentionally choosing 3 different machines with 3 different controllers because we want to show the small mediums that we are indeed vendor agnostic. So we don't really care if you have a Fanuc controller or you have a Siemens controller, don't care. We're going to be able to show you how we can outfit each one of those machines with sensors, be able to pull the data off of those controllers, and be able to help you get on your journey to Industry 4.0. We are using standards-based tools to collect that machine data. You heard both QIF and MT Connect mentioned in previous presentations. And we intend to release all the hardware configuration data, the drawings and the cell controller software on GitHub under an open source license. So we think the key to help these small mediums is to make this as easy as possible and as affordable as possible. So everything that we're going to do, and this is all stuff that we're going to do, not stuff that we've done. So I was hired last May. We got our certificate of occupancy for the building in late November. We have the machines on order. We're having our grand opening scheduled for June the 1st. So by this fall, we should be fully up and running. And our goal is to do research in addition to help the small mediums understand what this journey is all about and how to get started. In addition, we want to expose the engineering students to high precision CNC machining. So I've had a chance to visit a lot of the companies within a 150-mile radius of the University of New Hampshire. I love to ask the same question to the plant managers that are hiring our engineering students. What's the number one deficiency of the product that the University of New Hampshire is offering you? And everyone says, gosh, can you get them some exposure to high precision CNC machining? So we're going to do that. So also, we're looking at trying to enable what I would call semi-generative computer-aided process planning. How many have heard of semi-generative computer-aided process planning? So not anyone, that's great. So I remember reading this in a book back in the 1970s where they talked about being able to take features, common features that are common on all parts, whether they're holes or scallops or radiuses, but different features, and be able to put all that into an expert system. And then when you have a new part that a customer wants you to give a quote on really quickly, you can estimate the machining time on that part, no matter how complex that geometry is, very, very fast. And then you can also develop that description of manufacture and all those sequential process steps through that expert system. So even though I read about it in the 1970s, I've yet to find a company, maybe Sandvik is doing this, I don't know, but I've yet to find a company that truly has a semi-generative computer-aided process planning system. So it's kind of, in my mind, sort of one of the holy grails that we like to do some research in. There's a lot of variant computer-aided process planning systems out there. If you're making one part that's very, very similar to another part. When I worked at General Dynamics, we made a lot of artillery shells for the Army, and the difference between a smoke round and a loom round and an HE round, not much difference. So when you got a new round in from the customer and a TDP, it was very easy to make that description of manufacture, develop those sequence of processes because you could use what you did before. But what if you get something totally different that you've never machined before? So if we can develop this information from machining cycles on the features themselves, not the whole part, and be able to put that out there for people to use, we think that's going to hopefully drive us towards this semi-generative concept. And we want to expose data to Microsoft SQL for analytics and machine learning. So machine learning is the big buzzword, artificial intelligence, but adaptive control's been around for a long time. Still not a lot of companies deploying adaptive control in their machine tools. But it's an area that I think, Sandvik, you've mentioned it in your presentation, it's an area that I think you're going to see a lot more of, so that when you're machining and you've got tool degradation, the machine automatically compensates for that tool degradation. If you've got variances in the hardness of the material as you're machining, it automatically compensates for that variance. So those are the kinds of things that we'd like to do some research in. And we want to do this collaboratively. I can't emphasize that enough. So we're going to pursue something called an Industry University Collaborative Research Center. How many have heard of an IUCRC? It's a well-kept secret. So it's an NSF-funded program. And NSF will encourage us, more than one university, you have to have a couple universities, at least a couple, to get together, and you propose some topic area that you want to do collaborative research in. And then you have to recruit companies that are interested in that topic. You have to have at least 9 companies for each university that says, yeah, I'm interested, I'll come to a meeting, I'd like to understand what it's all about. But eventually you have to get a couple of companies, 3 per university, to say, yeah, I'll join for $50,000 a year. And then NSF matches that $50,000 a year. So $150,000, and I've got 4 other universities, so 5 universities, quickly that adds up to about $1.5 million per year that we can do collaborative research. And every company that joins and puts in that $50,000 gets to use whatever research gets developed. So the outcome of that research is shared with all the members of an IUCRC. So it's kind of like, Tom, it's kind of like an institute only on a much smaller scale. So we don't have $70 million, but $1.5 million a year still nothing to shake a stick at. And to get companies involved, and there's 80-some IUCRCs already across the country where companies are participating in collaborative research with universities, and the company members decide on what research is going to be done. So faculty bring great ideas, but the companies decide which ones they're going to fund. So it's a great opportunity if you've never heard of an IUCRC. And it's, by the way, if you Google NSF IUCRC, you'll find all you want to know about that. So this is the line that we're building. And you can see that we've got these robotic safety barriers there in the red, but you can also walk up and access the machines on the other side of those barriers and do whatever you would like to do. We're ordering industrial grade robotics, 300-pound capacity, both an ABB and a KUKA robot. As I mentioned, the 3 CNC machine tools. So this is something that I think is based on the companies I've visited in the area. They're very interested in what we're doing here. I have an industry advisory panel that's sort of giving me some guidance on what they'd like to see. So once we have this fully operational this fall, we'd love to host anyone that wants to come up and see it and look for opportunities to do collaborative research together. One of the keys to the system that we're developing is what we're calling the manufacturing process enterprise. It serves as our execution application. This is also something we're going to make available to small, medium-sized companies. So again, you don't have to spend millions of dollars to get on this journey. We want to try to make it as simple as possible for small, mediums to start the process. Our network architecture, this is, you talk about cybersecurity, a fairly simple approach, making sure that all the data coming from the machines go through a server that is outside of, not connected to the internet, and then that server then will release that information. So you can't access, no one can hack into the machine tools. That's the biggest concern. Whenever I've talked, even when I was at DMDI for 2.5 years, whenever I would talk to small, medium manufacturers about hooking their machine tools up to the internet, they give you that glassy-eyed look like you're crazy because they're so concerned about somebody hacking their machine tools. So we want to figure out a way to do that and have some kind of a middle protection zone there. And of course, cybersecurity, as everyone knows, is the big topic on how you do that. So our phase one, we're procuring and installing these machine tools and the robotic systems as I speak. We hope to have that all set up by June the 1st. In phase two, integrating this MPE software that we're developing and validating those simulation tools with real hardware, creating the feature indexing files for post-process G-code. That is I think, something new where we're actually trying to measure on the feature, not the part. So every part has a lot of features. If we can gather a lot of data over a couple of years on machining time for features and forces, et cetera, we think that's going to be something we can use for further developments down the road. Begin our automated manufacturing of prototype designs and collecting machine tool, robotic, and process station data. So we also have reached out to a couple of institutes. So these institutes, I'm telling you, it's a great opportunity to get some money if you're willing to do collaborative research and you're willing to share the results. So we're proposing there's one called CESME, the Clean Energy Smart Manufacturing Innovation Institute, that just came out with a solicitation. We turned in a proposal for $1 million request. Half of that's cost share that we're putting up. There's one called RAPID that's focusing on process intensification. Some of the faculty at University of Hampshire turned in a proposal for that. There's one up in Rochester called Remade that's focusing on sustainable manufacturing and how can we analyze whether or not secondary feedstock is machined in the same way that original feedstock is machined. And is there any variance there? So we've given some ideas on how we can monitor energy usage during the machining of secondary feedstock. We'll see if our proposal gets selected. So phase three, conducting the robustness exercises to, quote, industrialize, unquote, our MPE software system and exposing data to analytics and machine learning services. So we've partnered with a couple of companies that are helping us do this. And again, the cost of what the main box that you have to buy for your machine is like $100. And then the software is going to be open source. So the CESME dimension is what I just talked about. Define, develop, implement energy-related sensors. That's what Clean Energy Smart Manufacturing Innovation Institute is all about. It's all about energy and how can we manufacture things with less energy. So we turned in a proposal that says, hey, we can add to our existing MPE architecture by putting sensors on and monitoring every single feature as it's machined, how much energy is consumed. So more to follow as to whether or not we're able to win that proposal. Hopefully we'll know by March. And potential future explorations, how much control of the machines can we transfer to the cloud or the edge? One of the holy grails I keep talking about, and I've heard that companies like DMG Mori are looking into this. I've heard Dr. Mori's personally looking into this. How can we transfer the control of that machine? Now I know you talked about the latency and how much time it takes. I keep hearing from some people that that's getting, the technology's coming, the time-sensitive network technology is coming, that maybe that's going to make it much faster. But wouldn't it be great to just be able to take a CAD drawing and load it into your software and have the software automatically tell the machine what to do? If you let it know what kind of bar stock you're feeding into the machine and you want this finished configuration, everything is done automatically in the cloud and directs that machine on what to do. And also to know the availability and capability of every machine on your shop floor as well as every one of your supplier's shop floor so that you can run those what-if scenarios in case you have a surge request from your customer on, hey, I need a bunch more of these a lot faster than I thought. Where's the best place to do that? So all of that technology being available in the cloud eventually, we'll see, but a lot of research opportunities. Cloud-based adaptive control. Right now the adaptive control is done right on the machine tool. Can we do that from the cloud? Don't know. I know that latency thing is a big concern. We'll see. In situ robotic in-process inspection. Can we scan? I wanted to ask you, Tom, that you mentioned you guys are scanning parts. Are you doing it on the machine, or you take the part out and scan it?
In our particular case, we're taking it out, so it's part of the, currently it's a manual unload, which is going to be automated in the end of this month.
Okay.
And then the robot then presents it for the laser scan. Takes, in this particular case, for that part, it's about a minute. We have not taken that into the machine, though you could do some of that with probing, I think, in the machine environment. I think for that particular part, it would be difficult to do, like with lasers. So.
Yeah, so another area that we'd like to explore, on-machine part-in-place scanning. Can you do all that scanning while the part's still in the machine? Don't know yet. We're going to look into that. On-machine part-in-place robotic touch probe measuring. And what other ideas do you have? So that's the idea of collaborative research. And if anyone has ideas on some things they'd like to explore, but you don't want to interfere with your production machines, we're going to have, by late summer, a great facility where you can do some of this exploratory research. So that's all I have. Any questions? Yeah.
Afraid to ask, but are you looking at blockchain?
So blockchain is, I would say, currently beyond what we're looking at trying to do, but it certainly is a fascinating area. So I've got to pull the computer science faculty more into what we're going to be doing here. Right now, the main focus of the center has been with the engineering faculty, but I think that blockchain is really interesting, and I think that it's an area that I think the computer science guys, if I can get them involved, we might be able to do something. Great question, but a little further down the road.
Can I add to that quickly?
Sure.
I'm just curious because where do you see the application for it in this?
Well, for me, the idea of knowing that every single part that I'm buying through my supply chain is coming from a trusted source, and I think blockchain technology is going to be a key to that. Counterfeit parts is a big concern in the aerospace and defense industry. So can blockchain solve that? Some people say yes. We'll see.
Yeah. If it's an area of interest in our strategic investment plan, you can actually download it. So it's available to anyone. I think we're looking at it in two applications. One was the cybersecurity side, but the other was in supply chain specifically around what Dean was just describing as a use case. So.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.